Welcome, 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 everyone. Happy Tuesday. So glad to be jumping on here. I am Claire Jones, owner of Liminal Clarity, and I am the change guide for growth for high achieving women going through times of change, stress, and transformation. And we are jumping on today for this much anticipated Confident Transformations workshop with my two co-hosts, Jennifer Gligoric with Entrepods and Kaluwa Ruit Ghalikar with Armor Up Coaching. Hopefully I pronounce those correctly.
Got mine right. Yay.
Excellent, excellent. Well, welcome, ladies. So glad to have you on here.
Thank you.
I'm excited to be here and take the energy of this time of year, spring rebirth and renewal, and it's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's my favorite season by far, so I am a happy camper. All right, so this workshop is for women entrepreneurs who want to learn how to cultivate clarity, confidence, and certainty in times of transformation. So first, Jennifer is going to be covering radical honesty and acceptance as the key to change. Then Kaluwa will be providing her expertise on connecting to your power. And then finally, I'll wrap it up with the 5 steps to creating your own empowering rituals. All right, ready?
Yes, and I'm very excited to be talking to everybody. So my name is Jennifer Gligoric, as I was wonderfully introduced by Claire, and I am the founder of Entrepods. And I mostly deal with businesses looking to get funding or businesses that are looking to make a really strong exit. And a lot of times businesses come to me when they're in crisis or change. I've done scale ups. I've worked with a ton of startups, and you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, you seem like a person that like gets in and does all the worrying and the papers and the SOPs and getting things set, and you're dealing with all that. Yeah, so why are you talking about radical honesty and acceptance is the key to change? And I'm going to tell you, one of the first steps that I work with an owner or with a team that's come to me is where they're at and how they are in a mental space. Because if something's not working, it usually starts at the top. So I want to find out who's, is there something really not working? Is it just the market's change? What's really happening? And a lot of times that takes self-work with the people. So one of the biggest things we do, and so I'm going to dial this down since we're talking about confident transformations and mostly female entrepreneurs or people that are, let's say you're thinking about making a change. What was working before? We've been through this big time of change. Maybe it's not still working, right? So now is a great time. And a lot of people are going to do this naturally, right? In every 12-step program, if something's not working, you have to admit there's a problem. That's a part of the radical honesty. And then you have to accept what the consequences of this problem have been in your life. So on a business sense and why businesses need this, it's pretty important. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Honest Company. Jessica Alba is a pretty famous actress, and she got married, she became a mother, and then she started having some real big problems finding eco-friendly, natural products that she felt good having in her home. She started doing a lot of research. She ended up lobbying in Washington and learning a lot about the toxic, I forget the name of the act. It was like the 1976 Toxic Substances Act in homes or whatever it was, and made herself an expert. Well, that's a pretty big departure for someone who's known as being an actress and running around in, cute little clothes and doing stuff like that, right? But life changed. She became a mom. Her priorities changed. And so she started to think about, how am I going to be able to have the products that I know that are going to be healthy for me and my family and do this. So she started this company, and she had a CEO, I believe her co-founder's name was Brian Lee. He had a big background, especially in online commerce, and they ended up being called a unicorn company, $1 billion valuation startup. Nobody could believe that they had gotten to that point. But their culture was very dialed down. What do you want to do? We want to provide core products for babies and a family at their house. And so she set down what we're going to do, right? And then they started to grow and things happened. And then some bad things started to happen. So right before 2016, they started getting complaints. There wasn't good labeling. A lawsuit came about labeling, and then the baby wipe debacle that really exploded social media because she was a star. She had used social media. She had leveraged that brilliantly, very smartly in that company. And all of a sudden their valuation started to go down. And then boom, in 2016, they lost out on Unilever. It was like a $600 million buyout. And Unilever ended up buying out Seventh Generation instead. So that's where I'm going to take you, right? So if you're a business or you're just working in a career, things are swimming along and you think they're okay. So confident transformations is that when you get to that point, it's not okay. So even in this massive company, they got to that point and they had to make some changes. And so what do we know that happened in 2017, 2018? Well, the co-founder, Brian Lee, left. And then they brought in Nick, I think his name is Glanassi. Anyway, they brought him in and he had a lot of experience with Clorox. And they sat there and they said, okay, what went wrong? And you could say, oh, it's manufacturing, it's this, whatever. No, we lost our culture. We lost our core. We started bringing in home products. We lost control of the supply chain. We weren't really, we didn't invest in having the people to see where these products came from. We just started to very hungrily expand and we lost control of it. And then we lost sense of who we were as a core. So they cut off the products that no longer aligned. They decided that original vision was really what they really wanted. They could have made another decision and said, no, we really want to be everything like that. How are we going to fix it? But instead, they realigned. They brought manufacturing in-house to where they had a lot more control over it. They did damage control. They did a lot more testing. And then they went back and now guess what? They were named like one of the top by Inc. magazine, top 21 companies just last year in like July. So they went up, went down, and went up. And this all starts with radical honesty and acceptance. So I just gave you a big top vision of how that can help, but how are you going to apply it for you, So we can take this, what it means is taking a really hard critical look at where you're at in your business and where you want to go. Do you still want it anymore? What worry is keeping you up at night? When did this worry start? What have you actually done to fix it? These very serious questions. And what could you have done different? Then it's also making sure, and we're going to talk about this here in a little bit, that you're not gaslighting yourself, which can be very easy to do in this process. So you're going to want to find out, why didn't you decide a different choice than what you did? You're going to look at your mistakes. You're going to have to forgive yourself for those mistakes. And then you're going to have write an honest assessment of where you're at right now and what you can do with that piece of information. Because this business or this career, maybe that was your baby, but it's no longer serving you. And if it hasn't served you in a long time, you're going to have to figure out a way to let it go. So that's what we mean about radical honesty acceptance, for a very top down and just a little bit. So I'm going to pause a little bit because I have two very smart ladies here, and there's a lot more to go, and we're really going to dive into this, but I kind of wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of, if you're wanting to make a confident transformation, there's actually a step-by-step process you can use to get through it. And it's not going to be as hard. It's not as hard as you think, because a lot of it is just accepting and allowing, forgiving yourself, and then empowering yourself to move forward with new information. So anyway, I wanted to pause to see if y'all had anything to
Jennifer,
say.
yeah, I love what you said about the acceptance and the forgiveness. And that's been a conversation that's been coming up in my community a lot right now. As we're transitioning from winter into spring, or we have just transitioned, winter is the season of water. We go inward, we reflect, right? Water reflects us. And so that's what we do, a lot of reflection, which sometimes can be a bitter pill, looking in the mirror, we want to believe that we're doing everything good and we're perfect. And sometimes we're not. And actually all the time we're not, but that's okay. And moving forward means accepting that and forgiving that, because all it is just your learning curve. It's not that you're bad or stupid or horrible. It's just you're learning, and that's it. And that's kind of this right now, as we're, in this window of time, like, transitioning from the one season into this other. It's such an important time right now to be doing that. I compared it to, for so many years I taught dance, and we teach the kids a dance, right? And it's great, they all know it. But until you clean it up and they're all actually doing the same dance in the same timing,
Then it's not as funny.
Yeah, I know. But that's when it looks really good, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of this phase we're in right now, that cleaning up, like, just purging all of the previous year, right? And now we're forgiving and loving and unconditional to ourselves and moving into this new.
Yeah, it is. Claire, did you have anything you wanted to add? I love that. I love all of the, because Kaluwa is someone that I love to talk to because she reframes it. She always has nature. Nature is just part of her thing. Like she's that mother goddess tree and she can put it all together. And I go, yeah, that's why this is that way.
Yeah, it's funny because I come from the, biz dev background as well. And I immediately thought of the book From Good to Get Great by Jim Collins. I don't know if you've read it before, but I highly recommend it. It's a book that really analyzes, like as a science, how companies go from mediocre to great and what happens to the companies that go from mediocre to bad, and contrasting what it is. And one of those principles that he talks about is you have to face the brutal facts of reality, but also balance that with an optimistic vision for the future. Like you have to have a really clear idea of where exactly you're at and what the brutal facts of reality are, but then also maintain that optimism that things will get better later on, and to maintain that motivation. Because if you just focus on the brutal facts, you can find yourself depressed, you can find yourself stagnated, stuck, not willing to move forward. But maintaining that optimistic vision is the very important balance to that.
Yeah, that is a really great point. And I'm glad you brought that up, because being an optimist really comes into play here when you're dealing with this, because you're in a bad mood when you have to get to radical honesty and acceptance. And I wish it wasn't like that. I wish it could be a more consistent process. When you get healthier and more emotionally stronger and you start leveling up your maturity, then this process is more natural. But before that, it usually takes a pain point. I'm fine, just balls to the wall until you hit the wall. And then you're like, I'm not fine. And you're just like bleeding out somewhere. And it's just accepting reality. And so we talked about a big company, but your reality may be I'm financially insolvent. I have bad credit, and this severely impacts my ability to grow my business. Saying that is not giving up. Acknowledging that isn't giving that up. So it isn't just giving up, it's realizing this is how it is, and then dealing with it mentally, emotionally, and putting a plan forward to get out of that. Writing that down.
For the people in the back, Jennifer, I love that.
Yeah. Admitting it isn't giving up, right? And pain. So this is another thing. This is a Tai Chi method, right? That I've learned through someone called the Barefoot Doctor, if anyone follows him. But he said, pain is just pain. Now it's just this one statement. And then I had to sit with it in many different iterations of that. And I thought about that. And I thought about it in childbirth. Pain is just pain. It is telling us that something is about to happen, but you can't escape from it. It's when we try to escape from it or anesthetize ourselves from it that it makes it so much worse. So you can drink through it, you can be in denial through it, you can try all these things, but your pain is only going to be prolonged suffering. It shouldn't be that way. Pain is there as a temporary indication to move through, right? So let's take this even more severe thing. Okay, I was in an accident. A drunk driver hit me and killed my family, and I survived. And I'm going to be in pain, a chronic pain, for the rest of my life. Yes, Yes. I worked with chronic pain doctors, and people would come in, they look like addicts. They said, will I get my soma? Will I get, will I get Norco and soma? And this combination that regular doctors hand out like it's candy. And you just thought, wow, that's real drug seeking behavior, right? It's because they've been mismanaged. When that accident happened, they were never sat down and said, Bob, I know this is tough, but you're never going to go back to the way it was again. You're always going to have this pain. We're going to have to find a way to manage this pain. And this is what it's going to look like now. So let's work through this. Instead, they said, yeah, it'll get better. Let's see how you are in 6 months. Let's see how you are in a couple of months. And before time goes, by the time they go to pain management, which is not the way it's supposed to be, by the way, they're taking handfuls of temporary meds, 3 hours, 6 hours, 12, whatever, and they're not sleeping. So you're meeting someone who's a psychopath, because every couple hours they're not getting any REM sleep. They're waking up, they're taking these pills. They get this euphoric effect and they know that it's working. So they equate the euphoria with being out of pain. But because they're not being managed, they're getting euphoria and still pain, which makes them crazy. So then you put them on a morphine. They'll fight it. I'm not a drug addict. I mean, they'll cry, scream at you. You think I'm a drug addict. This would no, sir, you need short acting and long acting medicine. So then they'll put the long acting on, they get sleep. And I have seen people that I have been scared of in a clinic that I was consulting, doing a turnaround, come back in 2 weeks, their hair's cut, they've taken a shower, the clothes look well. And you just want to cry, and they've had a sleep, and they've been able to get out of pain. And then you can get them into a therapy where not just physical therapy, but the mental therapy of, have you really dealt with your family's death? Or have you really dealt with this? And then guess what? They can move through life because they had to accept this is what's going to be. And then it's not so bad anymore. They've turned pain, even pain they have to deal with forever. It's not prolonged suffering. You don't have to suffer. So these are extreme situations. But I'm going to tell you, I've worked with women, and I've worked with many different types of people, through tiny first world problems to really big human issues. And this is a process that you're going to have to go through. It leads to an understanding that life is still worth living, even when there's pain, and it can be really good, but you're going to have to grieve and mourn and accept and forgive yourself and move past that. And there are some things which we'll talk about here in a little bit, but we're going to stop at that. So, because I want to see who
I love that. I love that reminder, because, when you think about it, when, that giving birth example, labor is progressing along, and then you decide to do the drugs, right? And then all of a sudden it stalls and it takes so much longer, right? So it's such a great reminder that, yes, I often say, imagine like you have your own little radio dial, like a little volume button, like tuner. And, when it gets to be too much, you turn it down, right? And then, take a little bit of time, recover. Jennifer is saying quality REM sleep is critical, right? And so, get that sleep, do what you have to do to take care of you. And then when you're ready again, turn it back up a little bit, feel, let it process, because when you ignore it, when you don't process, it doesn't go away. It just festers and becomes worse, right? And truly, your mind and your body are connected. So if you're not addressing the emotional issues, it can, and oftentimes will, become physical issues until you finally pay attention. Love this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there's actual neuroscience that backs that up too. Like when you think about emotion regulation and how you manage your own emotions, there's several different methods that you can use. But what you're talking about right now is response modulation. And that's when you try to modulate your response to your emotions and like either enhance a particular emotion or suppress a particular emotion. And response modulation is actually the most harmful out of all the emotion regulation strategies, because in the long term, it really impacts your cardiac health and your immunity health over time. So if you are continually suppressing or enhancing your emotions artificially, or without dealing with them, without managing them in a better way, you're actually going to decrease your physical health over time. And we talk about this a lot when it comes to like suffering and pain comes from wishing a situation is different than what it is. You know, when you think that the situation should be joyful or the situation should be sad, but that's not what you're feeling in the moment, that's where that disconnect happens. That's where cognitive dissonance comes into play, because you have a certain expectation for a given situation. And when it's not going according to your expectations, that's where that dissonance, that conflict, that pain, that suffering comes into play.
I just love that Claire brought this up, because one of the things that I talk about is through factual tolerance, we can create the energy and mindset to make better decisions for a healthier future. And there's many tools, and she's talked about them in research tools. And one of my favorites is DBT, Dialectical Behavior Therapy. And that is what I use with people that need to move through something. It could just be, you know, is this partner the right partner for me? We're starting to have conflicts, the bill, you know, things are suffering or whatever. But when you move through that, I start to pick out the gaslighting part. So we have enough time now. This is the third time, you know, are you gaslighting yourself? And Claire just brought it up. It's like, when you start to get cognitive dissonance, when you start saying things like, I had nothing to do with this, or this never should have happened, because your idea of what's supposed to happen is not what's happening. Or why do things like this just happen to me? My life shouldn't be this way. I'm just so unhappy and frustrated, but that's how life is. That's a particularly bad one. That's the martyr coming out in you. Well, this is how it is. Or if this changes, then I'll be happy. If I can just give some money in, I'm going to be happy. If I win this client, I'll be happy. Right? Or if Bob changes and he can just turn things around there in sales, then we'll all be happy. Right? So all of these are ways that we gaslight. It's attempting to fight reality in a self-inflicted gaslighting. And if you can stop that and go, okay, no, that's not really what it is. You know, I actually don't know if I'll be happy if I get this in. I know that there's a problem. So let's take it away from this statement and see where I'm at right now, so where I can build the future to be happy, rather than to stick up these walls that leave you in total stagnation to where you're just, you know, completely making yourself miserable there. And you don't see it because everybody says these things. Right? Everybody's, you know, says a form of something like this. And so getting into gaslighting, it's a type of emotional or mental abuse when someone uses manipulation and distraction tactics to distort the truth, making their victim question their own reality, right? It can happen in any type of close relationship. It's usually your closest relationship, but you can even do it to yourself. So insisting to yourself, you love yourself, I trust myself, but your decision and your actions are consistently saying that you had nothing to do with your own reality. Well, that's a cognitive dissonance. You know, are you a strong person that trusts yourself and you believe that you're making the best decisions, and the decisions you had made to lead you up to this are great, but then they're not? Well, then that's a problem. Let's go back to looking at that and saying, okay, maybe I could have made a better decision and I didn't, and this is why. So now I have to change that, because what happened in the end, the consequence of that is something that I don't want to put up with. And so just being able to verbalize that and work through that process to take accountability is, it's the difference between being a success and happy in your life and being miserable. And for some people, they won't ever come out of it. But the majority of people, if you can hear me and say, when you admit the problem's you, that is the worst feeling in the world, but then it's the most empowering thing that can ever happen to you, because then you have the power to change everything. Then you have the power to make different decisions. And when you realize that, everything opens up. It's like doors and windows start to go pink, 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 and you hear the birds sing. And like Kaluwa, she paints these beautiful green spring things. It all just
personal
gets so
responsibility.
Yes, it just gets so much better. So stop saying, we're just so busy. Everything's going to get better once we get out of the Christmas season at work, or things will get better between my husband and I when the kids are older and work slows down. Once COVID is done, we're just going to go back to the way things were, and everybody will come back to work. I hear that one a lot. And I say, you're going to need to really think about that. The world has changed. People are no longer accepting a lot of things. There's so much that has been exposed to us that we kept blinders on, from how the media operates to everything else. The world is very wide open now for us to see things that we had never really seen before. And it's in a beautiful way. We're going to get through this. This is a very tough time though, right?
I love what you're saying here, because so often we don't want to. We don't want to do that reflective work. We just want to push it. No, it's going to get better, like how you're saying. And yet it's that very thing that actually pushes you through to that next level. It gets you where you want to go. So you got to be willing to do it. That's why it's only for the strong and the brave.
Yeah. There's this great saying by Exu: if the coffee tastes bitter, it is bitter. It is not your tongue malfunctioning. So don't stubbornly refuse to see how bad something is until it destroys you. Feel that discomfort. And when you feel that pain, remember, pain is just pain. Don't stop. Don't anesthetize yourself from it. Don't pretend it's really not there. Like the phone's ringing all night long and he's hiding in the bathroom, and he has to work late all the time, right? Like all these things will just be like denial. Denial is like, that is the most intoxicating of all drugs,
We're at the 5-minute mark, just to let you know.
Okay. So anyway, so getting down to the end of that, if you use these tips and you just sit there and you go, I'm going to write it out, I'm going to work through it, and then get to a plan. And if you want to get help, I'm happy to help you with this process. It's great, because there's a lot more that goes into this, but that's pretty much the basics. If you're going to change your business, if you're going to change your life, if you're going to lose weight, get healthier, get a better relationship, you have to radically sit down and go, okay, this is really where I'm at right now. And this is really, really what I want. Well, then how are you going to get there? I'm only going to want to marry a multi-millionaire who only dates supermodels that speak 15 languages. But I'm, this over here. Well, you got a lot of work to do, hon, right? I mean, it's just like, you just got to sit down. I mean, it's not just that, but like, where's my business? My partner and I are fighting all the time. If I can just make more sales, everything will be fine. Well, there's bigger problems than that. Why aren't you making more sales? What have you done different? Like, sit down and start to go through that process. And when you do it and you take ownership of it, you stop being in denial, it makes it a lot better. So that's it.
I keep thinking of the image of the "You Are Here" maps that you see, like in the malls, or like when you're at a park, or like wherever you're trying to navigate your way to somewhere else. It's like there's that big red dot, "You are here," and you have to pay attention to that's where you are now. And in order to get to where you're looking to go, you have to start at the "You Are Here" dot.
Yes, and then you have to actually very honestly say where you want to go. Most people get to "You Are Here" and then they just start meandering, and they don't actually really with clarity figure out where they're going to go. Like, let's say every high school student on the face of the planet, what's your major? I don't know, I'll figure it out. They're literally going up the mountain to the career they're supposed to take, their path of purpose, their thing out to the world. And they have no idea who they are, who they really want to be. And that's the wrong way to do it. That's the old way to do it. That's how you got stuck in a job going, I'm miserable. Everyone tells me how happy I should be right now. So once you get that, you need to make sure your goal is smart. If you're just like, who are you? Who are you want to be? And if your first gut instinct is, I just want to be rich. Well, I'm going to tell you, we're going to work on that. Because that is the symptom, or not, what is it? You know what I'm saying? That's just something you get from who you are, who you're supposed to be, right? That's something you'll get once you get to the one person. So you're missing something critical in that thing. So anyway, but that is perfect. You're right. You are here. We need to get that map. I'm going to make that graphic. Now you just gave me a good idea.
I'm here for all the creative ideas. They just ooze out of my brain 24/7.
Oozing out.
I mean,
That's
it's
what we're
literally
doing,
just like a
ladies.
constant ooze of rainbow glitter coming out of my ear.
I can see it. Pretty. I love that.
All right. Well, Kaluwa, do you want to carry us on through?
Yes, and it's so funny. I'm like trying to hold all these little nuggets in my head because you ladies have really segued into what I want to talk about so wonderfully. I first want to say Jennifer is like Rain Man when it comes to creating culture in your business. I mean, like, she's amazing. And yeah, you can hear that she's got such a unique perspective, and she's just fantastic with that. And I wanted to just introduce myself. I am Kaluwa. I am an empowerment coach or guide, if you will. And, you know, I have a strong passion for helping women getting out of toxicity, burnout, depletion, and stepping into their worthiness, their divine feminine, and just the life that they desire. And so many things that you ladies are saying here, that you are here, right? Where you are. But then taking just a little look back, where were you? Where were you before you're here now? Because again, with that forgiveness and that acceptance, we want to beat ourselves up sometimes about where we are now. But look backwards. Where were you before? You've probably come far, right? There's things you've already done. So remember to have some gratitude and some appreciation for that, because as you're doing that, you're opening up that energy flow. Because going forward, that breaking through, that transforming, that transitioning, we can't get to where we want to be if we're clenched up and we're negative energy and we're stressed out, and right? We have to be the person who already has it. You've got to transform into the version of you who already has everything you desire, because the things that you desire are meant for you. They're not you being selfish. They're not you, just being, greedy. I want to be a millionaire, whatever it is. They're your purpose. They were what you were meant to be here, right? And that is why you desire it. But what happens? What comes in between us and the things that we desire, right? Oftentimes we go for it and it never quite happens. And we have these patterns. We just can't quite get there. And then we get frustrated and we say, forget it. And then later on we try again, but then we get frustrated again, right? And we don't always get that breakthrough that we want. And a big part of what I believe causes this is worthiness. And it's our own levels, of worthiness. And the thing about worthiness is she's kind of slippery. She's a sneaky vixen. Okay. And I want to tell you about something where she just kind of came back and bitch slapped me recently. Okay. So I did. Oh my gosh. If you follow me at all, you've heard the story probably quite a few times, but I talk about where I had gotten into, I was in this toxic relationship, financially and emotionally depleted, and like done. Okay. I finally pulled myself up, put on my pants, right? And got myself out of it. But one of the biggest things that I really had to work on was my level of worthiness. Obviously getting into that situation, it probably wasn't great to begin with. And then now you're talking about somebody telling you you're not very worthy for many years, and then it gets lower. So you've got to upgrade that level of worthiness. And man, I'm a big fan of EFT tapping. And so I was like tapping on my face like a crazy person. I was working it all out, right? Working on that worthiness. And I got to tell you, it worked. It helped a ton. And, things that I had always wanted started to show up in my life. I was increasing my income for the first time in years. I was all of a sudden getting trips, like they were just falling into my lap. And I was so excited. And I was like, I deserve this, right? I've done all my worthiness stuff. I deserve this. I get to go on these trips. Well, along comes the trip, and it was like 3 trips back to back. And so now I'm like, oh my God, like I'm kind of getting a little, about it, but I'm like, but I deserve it. I'm worth it. And I go. And I'm like, well, I'm going to, get the good food while I'm here. Because, when am I coming back? Right. I deserve, but I get a little, and I get back from the first trip. And I was like, you set aside money, you save some money to go on these trips. And then you figure come back, build it back up again, and then go on the next trip. But instead of that happening, I come back and now I got an unexpected vet bill. And then I got an unexpected car thing happen. And then I got right. And so it comes down a little further. And I'm like, oh crap, now I'm going into this next one, like even further below where I wanted to be, but it's already booked. What are you going to do? You lose money if you cancel it, right? So I go, and I said, okay, I'm all right. I'll still enjoy it. I still have some, and then I get back, and then it's like holidays, so it comes down a little bit more, and I'm finding that it's coming down more and more and more, and I'm like, all right. And then I take that 3rd trip, and I'm like, all right, well, there was one thing I wanted to do, but you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this instead. And then I come back, and I'm still like, it still doesn't seem to be building back up. And I'm like, all right, what is going on? What is happening? There's no more excuses, right? I couldn't make excuses anymore. I couldn't say it's the car, it's the holidays, it's the this. What's going on? Why am I energetically not bringing in what I did before? And I had to take that look in the mirror and realize, oh my gosh, yeah, I was worthy to go on the trip, but I wasn't worthy of maybe pampering myself a little bit on these trips. And I needed to be financially punished for being such a spoiled little girl. What kind of garbage is that?
What kind of garbage is that, right?
What kind of garbage is that? And so tapping on the face, starting up again. Okay. So we start tapping again. And now I'm undoing some of that. But she's slippery. Who would have ever imagined that if I was worthy to go on a trip, I wasn't worthy of enjoying it, maybe?
The other shoe drops.
Yeah.
I call that those terrible, I call it my itty bitty shitty committee. That's what I call it. That thing in there that always is, well, you're happy now, but the other shoe's going to drop. Good things only, bad things happen in 3s. So it's just going to, you got to get through that or this, all this crazy stuff. Yeah.
We have all of those programs, right? We've been taught for so long. Oh no, martyr syndrome has been around for a really long time. Like that was what I grew up on, was that. So they sneak in, you've got how many generations of programming into you, and it just sometimes it sneaks up and you're like, really? And so that's why, again, that forgiveness, it is okay exactly where you are. There is nothing wrong with you. You've learned something new about yourself, and now we're going to move forward. And you know what? That just lets you know what you need to repair, what you want to reprogram, so that you can be that version of yourself who breaks through, who has the beautiful transformation.
Yeah, I always ask myself, like, what is this teaching me?
Yeah.
Like this hiccup, this obstacle, this pain in my ass. What is it teaching me right now? And then I can usually laugh about it because I'm like, ha ha, universe.
Yeah. I got you. Exactly. So what I wanted to do was just a quick little, like just kind of touching in, right? So the ladies agreed to be my guinea pigs. And if you're watching live or if you're on a replay, I would love for you to do this as well. Of course, remembering whenever you're watching this, this is meant for you if you're here, right? So do this with us. So just go ahead and rub your hands together, get them nice and warm. And all you're doing is just kind of building up the energy, clearing your mind a little, getting out of your head. can feel them warming up already. Go ahead, we're gonna take them and just cup them, put them over your eyes. And just notice, can you feel that energy, that buzzing in the palms of your hands? That warmth? And then take it, and we're just gonna sort of massage over the face a little bit, right? And maybe over the hair, you know. If you're not live with us, you don't have to worry about what your hair looks like. So, and then on the shoulders, we're just gonna, just kind of touching in down the arms, down the front and the sides of the body. Tap on the back and the lower back there. That's the kidneys. That's the organ associated with fear. So this is a good place to loosen up. This is, you know, that's just kind of what your brain is programmed to do, is to protect you. So it kind of operates in that fear-based thinking. So we're just going to loosen it up. And then just rub down your legs. You may be sitting, but you can just kind of rub down into your legs. And you can either, you know, sit with your hands on your thighs or bring your hands to your heart, wherever you want to go. And I want you to close your eyes and think about, is there some sort of odd pattern that keeps coming up for you? You know, something that you want, but maybe you feel like every time you try to go for it, a wall comes up, or something happens, or something is repeating in your life. Let's go ahead and maybe just identify. And once you've identified what it is, I want you to be honest with yourself and think about, what is it? Why do you think that you don't deserve it? And something may just spark into your mind quickly, sometimes a memory, something that happened many years ago. Or sometimes it takes a little longer. Whatever your process, that's perfect. And I just want you to take that, whatever it is that you think you don't deserve it. And I want to imagine you push it all the way down through the bottom of your body into the ground. And just let it push into the middle of the earth, where it's composted into love. And then it shoots back up through the bottom of your feet as love into your body. And when you're ready to open your eyes, and I'm wondering if my ladies here are willing to share anything and be vulnerable.
Nope. Because I just covered something. I was like, but it's going to take a while. I think I've covered something, but I didn't get to a place where I knew where it came from. But I was like, where I thought I was trying to push myself to where it came from. Well, it would have come from this. It was going somewhere else, but I couldn't tell where it was going. We didn't have enough time. I'm going to have to like sit with that.
Yeah.
That was good, Kaluwa. Like that was interesting.
Yeah.
I will say though, I'm so shallow that when I had to cut my hands, I was like, my birthday nails are all chipped. That's my first thought.
And forgive yourself for that. You're not shallow. No, you just like to be in your queenly state.
That's right. But yeah, I did notice that. But no, that was really interesting, because I come from a more analytical sort of thing. I have both sides, but I'm more like So those types of things are hard for me. So if anybody else had a hard time with that, that's watching, those are hard for me too. I have to really, like, you can see I probably move more than anyone else. That's probably like, it's very difficult. I have a
We've
lot
been
of barriers.
taught, the masculine way to do everything. We analyze, go to therapy, and we write it down, and we, and sometimes connecting to your intuition, it's been, taught to be silly and irrational and, just not valued, but truly it is, our intuition knows best for us, and it is a connection to our divine.
That pure energy, when you type into, I can feel it when it happens. And so I cannot deny my experience. I can't gaslight myself by saying this isn't happening. I'm not feeling it. I do feel it, but I still have to go because it's so powerful. We are creatures, I believe we are creatures of God, and he wants us to have an incredible experience. We have our crosses to bear, but these are just teaching things to help us to go to an enlightened state. And sometimes they're harder than others. But when we get into that with a pure heart and goodness, it's amazing what we find. Anyway, that was very good, Kaluwa. And now I have something I'm going to be working through.
And so that's what I was going to say. Sometimes it can be like layers, right? You hit a layer and all of a sudden you're like, all of a sudden these dots just start connecting all over the place. You're like doing the dishes and you're like, oh my gosh. And so sometimes it can take you down a path, and that's okay. Yeah. What do you think, Claire?
Yeah, the thing that came up for me is like people telling me what they think is best for me. And waiting for people to tell me what they think is best for me instead of me going out there and being like, no, I think this is best for myself.
Oh, amen.
And it's just such a lifelong ingrained habit.
That is a generational, that is how long, when you think about the fact, think about the fact that, women couldn't have their own checking account until the 70s.
Yeah, 50 years.
Okay. Yeah. So think about how long women had to ask permission to do anything.
Yeah.
Right. They were always having either to their parents or to their husband. You went from one guardian to the next. So we have a lot of programming. And the thing is, what we teach our children, we continue to pass down these old programs without even knowing why.
Yeah, I've been kind of raging against the machine lately when it comes to the financial games that we have to play often. Like, you have to keep your credit score at a certain level. And then, in order to keep it at a certain level, you have to trade out your credit card debt for personal loans because that's automatically better debt. Like, how do
I know, it was so funny. Like when you have these moments of waking up where I'm like, what the hell is a credit score? Who cares?
People that are billions of dollars in debt are the ones giving me a credit score.
Exactly.
I want to rage against that machine.
This is just mind control.
And I feel
like this is just like herding the sheep.
And I feel like I'm just like constantly asking for permission from these like non-existent entities. Like, can I please have above 700, please? I've been a good girl.
Yeah.
Like, is Santa gonna come? I've been good this year.
Yeah. So I love Jennifer saying, I tell people I do not live according to your opinions on how I should live. No, I live according to God and my beliefs. And she said, credit scores equals debt. It's true. Because think about the fact that what gives you the best credit scores is having a credit card, which means usually means being in debt. It's just programmed.
It's this wild, like, generational belief of like, I have to go to these certain institutions to like ask permission to thrive.
Yeah.
And they won't.
And that's a big part, so much of the worthiness thing I see with women entrepreneurs is I've got to get the next certification. I've got to get more education. You don't need to get nothing except better grammar than that. But no, you have enough knowledge and information. You are enough. to do it. You don't have to keep going out and getting more to prove yourself. It was funny because I actually just recently did this thing. I noticed like I had the letters after my name and my signature, and I was like, you know what? I am removing that garbage. I have nothing to prove to anyone. And so we don't need to prove ourselves.
Yeah, I spent a long time doing that. And it didn't really matter because I ended up spending money with people that had the letters, and it was just a joke. It's almost like, especially when you're really doing, I mean, I don't want to knock education. I mean, obviously, if you have a doctor and, there's a lot of things that you need, and some education is great. Some certifications make sense. It just totally makes sense with your journey and where you're going. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, stop. Well, I mean, I agree. Stop the dogma of this is what I have to do because everyone says I have to do it.
Yeah.
And they have my best interests at heart.
Mm-hmm.
No, you have your best interests
Absolutely.
at heart.
Yeah.
And stop putting parental love. Like if you had great parents who really loved you, at one point, they push you to make your own decisions. I'm going through how hard that is as a parent now with the teen. Having to go, okay, it's going to be time. We're going to have to, and guess what? I'm not the coach. I actually found a coach who helps kids figure out who they're going to be so that they're not going on that mountain. And so I had to go outside myself too. Is that difficult? Yeah. Can I trust this person? Are they going to be good? What if, this is very age, but at one point you have to trust yourself. Because you're who's going to be out there when the winds and the storm comes, and you're going to see yourself through it.
Yeah, I remember having an existential crisis when I was told to choose a college. I was like, what do you mean I choose? I was like, I have no criteria to choose. Like, you've never given me any practice on choosing for myself. Like, how am I supposed to do this?
That's it. Well,
you picked out this shirt, right?
In school, you're taught how to repeat information. You're not taught to think critically.
I did not practice this choosing skill that you are now putting in front of me and telling me to choose or else.
Yeah.
That's not a skill.
And then we get into that analysis paralysis. Can I choose? What if I get it wrong? And that's where that coming back to your intuition, right? And that's a practice. That's not like, you don't like do yoga one time and you can do the most advanced pose. No, it's a practice. You practice every day, you get more flexible. Same thing with tapping into your intuition. It is a practice. You do it every day, little things. And the more that you start to trust yourself, the more you can do that and stop going outside of yourself for answers to the things that you need in your life, because nobody else knows but you.
Yes. Did you ask the right question? So the things that you can ask yourself, how to make good decisions. This is like a really important one, guys. How to make good decisions is to say, well, what information have I gathered about this decision I'm going to make? Do I feel like I've done reasonably everything a logical person can do to get this decision for this? Okay. And do I have a history of just making the world's worst decisions? No. When I have all the information that I've gathered so far, is there anything else that I need to do right now? No. Well, then give yourself the permission, because you hold you at your highest regard for that. And if you can start small and little things, then build upon that, because your ability to look at yourself and go, I'm just going to go for it. It's going to increase your ability to take risk. There are healthy, wonderful risks to take. I mean, look at the playgrounds. Did y'all remember that after the war, they tried to build these playgrounds for children right after World War II, and they found children that were taking all the rubble, and they were making their own pet playgrounds and making these incredible things, and they were getting nails, and they were, so for a while there until the 70s, you had these types of playgrounds that were called like adventure areas, and they literally put nails and hammers and things in there, and they let kids build, and it was risky, and they let them take calculated risks. There were heavy objects, they could get hurt, and kids did get hurt, but the ability to take these calculated risks, they created a lot of wonderful stuff. And now, 50 years later, 20 years later, the United States Army has just put a bid out, because they need to bring in people to reverse engineer the stealth fighter, because somehow they can't figure it out anymore, because who they've hired have lost the ability to be as innovative as the people who built it. It's a pretty big problem. So don't be like that. Get yourself out of there. I agree, golly,
Perhaps
And I-
5-minute marks, just to let you
Yeah.
know.
And so one of the things I said, well, first of all, I mentioned tapping. I think that's a brilliant, if you've never experienced tapping, you can follow along with videos on YouTube. Brad Yates is like one of my absolute favorites. But if you've done it, you start, especially if you're going to say something negative, you start tapping the side of your hand, the karate chop point, and just saying, whatever the issue is, but you love and accept yourself, right? And then you go through side of the eyebrow, the side of the eye, under the nose, under the lip, collarbone, and then there's that spot sort of under the arm, and then the top of the head. And you just keep going through, and then you start with the negative, like I'm not worthy of having a really great time on vacation. I don't deserve to pamper myself when I'm on vacation, right? And I would keep going through, and basically I'm getting out of the fight or flight when I'm saying those negative things, right? Because when you say those negative things, your body immediately goes right, because it's not in alignment for your highest good. So this is taking the stress out of your body while you're doing it. And then after you say all the negative, right, like the cruddy belief, and I even say exaggerate it sometimes to really get it all, then you can start to say, but I realize that's not true. This is obviously not how it's meant to be. I would not have, stumbled into these trips if I was meant to be miserable on them, right? And you just keep going. And obviously this is what's really, the case. And I deserve to be happy. I deserve to travel. Travel inspires me. I get to do, and you just keep going. And then at the very end, just a nice big breath in through your nose, fill up your belly, and then push it back out through your belly and out, and just settle for a second. And the more you do it, the more you reprogram these beliefs, and in such a simple way. It's really easy. And then suddenly, like, your behavior changes a little bit when things come up. When you get into these situations, you start to behave a little differently than you did before, and all of a sudden you start to realize, wow, things are actually working out for me. Well, this is really neat. So yeah, that. And I'll say one more thing for tapping into your intuition. I think the very basic layer, the foundation for doing that is connecting to your body. So when your body gives you a cue, don't think of that as a reason to complain about your dang old body or take an aspirin, or, right? What is my body telling me today? If I always have a pain in this one spot, what's happened? Maybe I'm doing something every day that's not good for that. Maybe I'm feeling something, there's different parts of your body that associates with different emotions, but just start to listen to it and love your body and move it around, like, stretch and like do things. If you've ever watched a cat wake up from a nap, oh, does that look like the most indulgent thing you've ever seen? It's like, oh my gosh, and you just, that feels amazing, right? Do that kind of stuff for yourself. Why wouldn't you, right? So this is really great ways to start connecting the mind and the body, and you start to get these little hits, these little, nudges, like, you know what, I think I should take this different way home today. I mean, I did that. I accidentally missed a turn. I'm like, I take this drive every day, and I found my new car, right? So these things are happening for you. Life is happening for you all the time. So just go ahead and embrace it. And you've got this. Be that goddess of yourself, that goddess version of you who already has everything you want. Believe in her, tap on it, that it's coming, that you've got it, you deserve it, you're worthy. And it's coming, my friend. I can't wait to see it happen for you.
Oh, that was perfect timing. Congratulations. All right. Well, we've talked about the past, we've talked about the present, we've talked about tapping into our intuition, we've talked about radical honesty with ourselves. So now I'm jumping in. So I'm Claire Jones, owner of Liminal Clarity. If you missed us in the beginning, I am the change guide for growth, and I use a multidisciplinary approach that provides stability and support to high achieving women during times of change, during times of stress, during times of transformation. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. But how exactly did I get here? You know, I've actually been an entrepreneur since 2014. I opened my first business, a brick and mortar retail store devoted to local goods. And it was my crash course in all things business. And while I did learn a whole lot, I also made a whole lot of mistakes, as one does during these periods of time. And the most painful of which was actually burning myself out. Because I thought that I had to hustle in order to make things happen, another myth that society tells us, I soon found myself working 60 hours a week in a white box surrounded by inventory I just couldn't seem to sell. And after 2 years of that, I was done. I was like, nope, I'm burnt out, I'm exhausted, I'm miserable, I'm lonely, like, no, thank you. And I knew I was capable of incredible impact, but for some reason, things weren't just not clicking for me. And I found myself doing way too much for way too little, constantly trying to fit myself into a box and do all of the shoulds that people think that we should do. You should do this, you should do that, you should be this, you should say this. And being busy for the sake of being busy actually gets you nowhere. And I definitely learned that the hard way. And that's actually when I started really seriously looking into healing myself and investing time and energy into personal development. Because what I realized along the way is that personal development is business development. They're one and the same. You can't separate them. One influences the other. And it's how you lead and manage yourself, which we've been talking about all throughout this workshop, through times of change, through times of stress, through times of uncertainty and transformation. Because at the end of the day, we do live in an infinite series of liminal transitions. So liminal means the space in between. And so many of these transitions are small, like waking up in the morning, going from one appointment to another, or ending our workday. Some of them are big, you know, like ending a relationship, moving homes, changing careers, starting a business, or even mourning the loss of a loved one. And sometimes we approach these transitions with excitement. Sometimes we approach them with dread, sometimes with confusion and uncertainty. And those are all valid reactions. But imagine what it would be like if you could create a custom ritual or ceremony or routine that actually provided a tangible support system to strengthen your journey from one stage to another, from point A to point B. So that's what we're going to be talking about with my particular portion of this workshop, because ritual is a simple yet powerful way to ground ourselves in the present moment, solidify our intentions, imbue meaning, and provide the tactile sensory integration that our brains crave during these times of uncertainty. It gives us control, not only over our own experience of any given situation, but it empowers us to live authentic, joyful, and easeful lives at the end of the day. It provides us with self-supported leadership practices that enable us to further grow, achieve, and expand. And I've actually been a lifelong student of human behavior, and I've been compassionately encouraging and supporting and guiding those around me for pretty much most of my life from the very beginning. And I've seen firsthand how extraordinarily impactful it can be to have someone like me in your court, cheerleading and supporting your own vision of your best self, not just the self that other people think you should be, which we have touched already on. Like you have to have this best self version of you, not what other people think you should be. And I know that true aligned fulfillment is possible because I have experienced myself thanks to practices like empowering rituals. So today, I'm going to teach you all the 5 steps to creating an empowering ritual so that you too can start taking control over how you decide to navigate these liminal spaces in your life. So starting with number 1, we always start with an intention for the ritual. We need to have some idea of where we're trying to go, what that point B is going to be, what we're trying to accomplish, what is the goal here. And it doesn't have to be earth-shatteringly huge or impactful. Sometimes a great intention for a ritual is to simply remind yourself of a mindset or a perspective that you want to hold. Remind yourself of a perspective that you want to exist in. So your intention could be to transition easily out of your working at home mindset to your relaxing at home mindset. That is a transition that we all go through every single day. Or it could be to joyfully celebrate a certain event or holiday or relationship. That's a common intention. Or it could be to meaningfully mourn the passing of a loved one or even the end of a significant chapter of your life. These are all totally valid and worthwhile intentions to create your ritual around. So the main question that you want to ask yourself is, what kind of experience do you want to create for yourself during this time of change, stress, and or transformation that you're going through? So I'm actually going to take a moment and let you jot down some potential ideas for an intention for a ritual. And you two are free to jump on and speak any intentions that you have.
I'm like busy writing, but I don't know. Maybe I want to do a personal intention. Let me think of another intention. Kaluwa, save me.
I know. I'm like, I'm almost thinking the idea of, transitioning out of work brain at the end and just getting back into, because man, it's like, and I tend to do my work later in the day because it's like, once I start, that's it. Like, I don't want to eat up my whole day, but I'm still finding myself wanting to have some evening time. And I'm really noticing, like my son needs more of my time. And so when I'm in that work brain, it's like, when a kid's like, blah, 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 it's like, so you got to turn off that work brain. And Jennifer's saying she intends to start the gym.
Yes, that's another very common one.
A big one. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, then I'll move on to step 2. Step 2 is cleansing. So here we are focusing on cleansing or clearing our spaces and energies so that we can bring clarity and focus to this ritual that we're creating. So for example, sometimes people will take 3 deep cleansing breaths. Sometimes people will burn smudging herbs or incense like sage or a candle that they really enjoy. Sometimes people will wash their hands or take a shower or a bath to physically cleanse themselves. Or sometimes people will ring a bell or a meditation bowl to have the auditory experience of cleansing the
entities. Funny. That's exactly, I have this Tibetan bell and I was just so proud of myself for thinking of that because I'm like, oh, class is over, bing, bing, bing.
Yeah, exactly. So identify an activity or behavior that feels cleansing for you. How would you like to ground your senses as you initiate this ritual? What would get you into the best energetic state for this ritual? What feels most aligned for you when considering your intention for this ritual? So take a moment, jot some ideas down. Kaluwa and Jennifer, you're welcome to jump in.
So I was thinking about body things. I just had, I was like, oh, well, you just had a birthday, this last weekend. And so you'll celebrate your birthday. And I was like, yeah, but it didn't feel like a celebration. I don't like the whole thing of getting older. I'm really fighting against that. And but I do. And then the clue is like, be connected with your body, stretch. And I thought about that, like I have a little Boston Terrier and how he stretches his butt and it's so cute. And I thought, yeah, I want to be more aligned. And the only time I do that is when I put on my makeup in the morning. I do have a morning ritual and I like to say positive things when I'm doing it. And I don't do it every morning, but I thought, but this could also, I could incorporate feeling good about my body, my face, because one of the things I love doing is I just got these 3 little serum things. And the last one has gold leaf in it. I know, y'all, it's so fancy.
I love that.
And oil and like lemon and verbena, and it smells incredible. So I put on the 2, I put on one like a toner. It's supposed to make me look younger. Then I put a little moisturizer on, and then I put just a little bit of this oil, and it's only, I just got it. This was like a birthday present to myself, right? And I've been putting it on and it smells good under my makeup like all day long.
Mm.
And I'm like, I can make this into a ritual if I'm going to love myself and I'm going to love all of this. And when I was younger, I couldn't ever afford anything like this. I'm not a big drinker or partier. I don't buy a lot of other expensive things, but makeup is kind of like my thing. I really do like it, right? And so I'm gonna just think, oh, look at all this wonderful makeup that I have, and this is nice. I finally get to enjoy this. So yeah, that's gonna be. That's what I'm building.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, it's about bringing your senses into the ritual and focusing your senses so that you can really dive into, which step number 3 is immersing, exploring, and connecting. So this is where we get into the nitty gritty of the ritual to fully immerse ourselves in the experience of it. So for example, sometimes people will write a letter or journal to themselves or to someone else. Sometimes people will recite affirmations, prayers, or mantras. Sometimes people will dance or move their bodies in a prescribed way. Sometimes it's a mix of all of the above. So what kind of activity or behavior feels immersive to you with your particular intention for this ritual? What would someone who is deeply connected to your desired outcome do as an immersive activity? How could you best explore your curiosities in regards to your intention? So take a moment, jot down some potential ideas for an immersive step.
So one of the things that I like to do a lot with my community is shaking, like the shamanic shaking, right? To release, right? We shake to release stuff, to get it loose and just get rid of it. And what a great day to get out, just shake it all loose and just get out of the work mode. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. I think of like dogs shaking off water when they like are wet and like just the spray coming off of their body. Like it's a physical manifestation of repelling something that you want to repel. So
and
maybe
how happy are they when they do that?
Right? Yeah. So like maybe you want to repel something, maybe you want to absorb something, maybe you want to send something. Think about what that type of immersive behavior would be for you.
I think I'm going to move my arms. Oh no, I was thinking about I need more movement in my life. I don't. I am very much a laser focused kind of, I don't know, just very laser focused, like in a ridiculous manner where people will come up and I'll just be like, like I want to do that, because I want to do that. So I need to move more because I think I get stuck too much.
I'm just wondering if I'm going to become like Pavlov's dogs. Like every time someone rings a bell, I start shaking.
I mean, there's worse things.
I know, totally. I'm okay with it.
That might be fun though. Ding, ding, ding. Right? Look at Kaluwa go.
All right. So then step number 4, moving on, is funneling. So this is where we are focusing on funneling the desired energy to the desired outcome. So for example, sometimes people will burn the letter that they just wrote in order to release the energy. Sometimes people will verbally or physically direct the energy to where they want it to go through words or movement. Sometimes people will eat or drink something to bring that energy into their body, or rub a balm or a lotion or an oil into their skin. Where do you want this energy to go? What kind of activity or behavior would best direct the energy for you in this ritual? And how could the energy be released or absorbed or sent in some way? Where would you like the energy to go as a result, the desired outcome? So take a moment, think about potential ideas for funneling for your ritual.
Quick question, and not for me. I was thinking, what about the people who are calling abundance and calling in money? What would be a way to funnel that? Let's say they're doing something. Would you think that eating would be the most appropriate because you're bringing in some abundance? Or would you look at your purse and be like, I'm going to grab this purse and I'm going to shake it and I'm going to think about filling up? Or
really up to you. The first thing that came to mind was rubbing money on my body.
Ooh. This isn't even mine. I just came up there.
I honestly meditate on that sometimes. I think I'm just like, gold covering my body or like money
Ooh.
covering my body. One of my meditations that I had the other day, I envisioned, you know how they make roses out of dollar bills sometimes?
Yeah.
I imagined those blooming inside of me. Like roses made it out of money were blooming inside of me, like blooming to the point where they were coming out of my ears, coming out of my mouth. Like it can really be anything you want. It's like how you want to physically, sensory wise manifest or funnel that energy that you're looking for.
Well, now there's another ritual I got to do too, because I'm thinking of, I like jewelry. So I'm thinking, oh yeah, diamonds, just to immerse myself in really pretty, sweet jewels.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if you want
whatever it
money,
is that you want to do with the money too.
yeah, if you want it to like be kept in a piggy bank, you could put money into a piggy bank and funnel the energy into a safe space. Maybe you want to give more money, so then you would give it to someone else. You know, where do you want the desired outcome to head? That's what the funneling is like I'm directing it to point B.
I actually did a meditation with some ladies. I did a wealth worthiness challenge, and oh yeah, you were there. and I had them visualizing themselves on the beach, because you know the beach is just the place of abundance, isn't it? And as they're walking along the beach, they see these bills, you know, sticking out. And so they go and they start collecting them and grateful and giving thanks for them. But then they're like, I really appreciate this, but you know, it's a lot of work to pick up all these individual dollar bills. Could you make the denominations bigger, please? You know, and then and I let them say, what was the denomination now? And you know, it's funny because there's so many different answers. Like some people are like, oh, 50, but some are like $1,000, and you know. So it's a really fun meditation to do.
Totally. It's whatever you want it to be, you know, and that's your control of the experience. You hold the power yourself. And so that brings us into step number 5, which is closing. So here we are ending the ritual so that we have a definitive bookend to the activity. So sometimes people will scatter the ashes if they burned the letter into the earth, into water, into air, whatever feels good to you. Sometimes people will end their dance and lay down to rest, like Shavasana, the corpse pose at the end of a yoga session. And then sometimes people will blow out a candle or ring a gong to signify the end of it. So what would feel best for you? How could you signify the closure of your ritual? And what would make your ritual feel complete at that point in time? So take a moment, jot down some ideas.
I have one of those that you take the bowl and you put the wood on the outside and it vibrates. And I love that. In fact, I have more than one. I just have to find them because we just cleaned everything up. They're always taking a nap though. See, that spoke to me. Oh, taking a nap. There's always time for a nap.
Have you tried turning it off, turning it on again? It applies to the body as well.
That's funny.
All right, well, that's it. Those are the 5 steps: initiation or intention, cleansing, immersing, funneling, and closing. And sometimes people think that ritualistic practices are enigmatic and esoteric, remnants of an era long gone, but really any task or activity that can become a ritual if you bring intention and meaning to it. Anything from your morning cup of coffee to your lunch, to your shower, to your commute can actually become a ritual. It's just what you bring to it. You hold the power in your hands. And so I'm happy to offer, if you are still grappling for ideas on what to make your ritual about, I'm actually offering a free 30-minute intention setting session. So in this session, I will ask you a series of powerful questions to help you identify an intention to center on in this phase of your life, whatever it is. I'll put the link in the chat. And if you're interested in just jumping right into a ritual creation session where we collaborate together and create a ritual specifically tailored to your unique journey, then I'll send the scheduling link for that as well. But I hope this has been instructive for you all today. Please make sure to catch me on my profile.
Yeah, do you know what I want to say about this? I love the idea of a ritual because it's really easy when you're setting an intention to get so caught up in it, right? We like white knuckle grip it. We're like, oh, I want this to happen. I want this to happen. And we're just putting want out into the universe. When you are setting up this ritual, it's like, yes, it's in alignment with what you want to happen, but it's just you being that version of yourself that does things in order for them to happen. And you don't have to white knuckle, you don't have to, stress about it and then get frustrated if it doesn't come to you, right? And it's just such a beautiful way of not only having some self-care already built in, but just taking these little steps towards the life you want in such a simple and lovely way.
Yeah, because you can't get what you want unless you start asking for it.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about big things, this is a way you can ask for it, and you can do it privately. You can just do it with yourself, a covenant you make with yourself, and set that energy out there, because you do get back what you put out. If you're constantly putting out stress and fear, it's going to come back. So if you can just stop in little ways to put out really positive things and think about yourself and feel those happy, yummy emotions. I thought about, I like the jewels, and I was thinking wealth and but beauty too, like still feeling young, and just thinking about myself like naked, and my body looked great, and I had these like really great jewels, and I thought, yeah, I'm a sexy beast in this, and automatically I was like, wow, yeah, I'm awesome. And I was like, I love feeling like that, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
And then the rest of the day you're just like, yeah, you just don't know what I was doing this morning, but it was hot.
Yeah,
I can do the rest of the day.
Yeah, I love it.
Into the mindset, you're just trying on this experience that you want to have, and it doesn't have to be set in stone. Like maybe you do it once and you don't like how a certain step goes, and so then you try it differently the next time, and then you try it differently the next time. The point is the intention and the meaning that you're bringing to it. It's not, we're imperfect beings living in an imperfect world, and we're just trying the best that we can.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jennifer,
so anything you want to say before we wrap up?
Yeah, Jennifer, did you have an offer as well?
Oh, yes. For anyone in your business that you're wanting to transform it, I do have a boot camp. So this boot camp is really awesome. If you are at the point where you just need to bring money in, like in the next 30 days. And it's a great way to get started in. It's self-paced. And then, of course, I have a full consulting firm, and I have a partnership here with Kaluwa and Armor Up. And so we even do white glove services, full sales teams. I mean, you name it, we can take one solo person up to a team. So I can put the link out in chat. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you 3 ways you can be a more ethical entrepreneur. It's a little ebook. It's a freebie. And I want you to read it because a lot of this is in it too. And so it can help put you on a better path.
All right.
So I want to give a freebie out to everybody. That's kind of what I want to do.
That sounds awesome. So as I mentioned, I work with soul-led ladies, getting the toxicity and depletion out of our lives, undoing a lot of that, these old generational programmings. We can cognitively say like, yes, this doesn't make sense, but then not falling into automatic pilot and repeating it is a little bit more challenging. So this is where we come together as a community. We upgrade worthiness. We learn how to do things in a more feminine way because we've been so overly taught the masculine way. So we can bring a little bit more balance into our lives. And so I have a community. It's almost like an academy where we have all these classes throughout the month, and I have available half off the first month to allow you to try it out and see, if it's a good fit for you. Or you can also, of course, always reach out to me and we can talk, but you can find it, and I'll put the link in there, but it's mycrave.club, and would love to have you come join us sometime.
Excellent. Well, also feel free to DM us at any point in time and ask about more, ask for support, because we're always here for you. I always sign up with, remember that your elevated self is extraordinary. It is wonderful, and you owe it to yourself to create the life that you know you can create. So with that, I guess we'll sign off. All right, see you guys.
Bye.